On my 30th birthday, my parents kicked me out, no warning, no explanation, just a suitcase on the porch and a cold, heartless, "You're too old to freeload." I spent years paying their bills, keeping the lights on, holding everything together, and still I was disposable. I froze their credit cards, and for the first time, I watched their perfect little world fall apart. But was I really the villain in my own story? What would you do if the people who should love you the most made you feel like nothing? Let me know in the comments. I'm Emily, and this is my story. The sun was dipping low, painting the small town of Brookdale, Pennsylvania, with streaks of amber and deep blue. The air was crisp, one of those fall evenings where the cold sneaks under your jacket and makes you shiver before you even realize it. I pulled my old sedan into the cracked driveway home, or at least that's what it was supposed to feel like. I glanced at the tiny vanilla cupcake on the passenger seat. $20 for a little bit of sweetness, a birthday treat for myself. The icing was a little smudged. The words, "Happy Birthday, Emily," almost illegible, but it was mine. A sigh slipped out. "You deserve more than this." I whispered more to myself than anyone else, but it was all I could afford. I grabbed the cupcake and pushed open the car door, the gravel crunching under my boots. The house was dark, except for the flicker of the living room TV, a tired old thing that hummed more than it showed. As I stepped inside, I knew something was off. "Mom, Dad," I called out, balancing the cupcake and my work bag. Silence! Just the low drone of a late-night infomercial. Then I saw them sitting stiffly on the couch, not looking at me. My mom. Carol was wringing her hands like she always did when she was nervous. My dad, Jack, leaned back, arms crossed, eyes focused somewhere past me. My heart thudded. "Is everything okay?" I asked, setting the cupcake on the kitchen counter. The plastic bag crinkled louder than it should have been. No answer. Just tension. A suffocating, sticky kind of silence. I forced a smile. I brought dessert. I know it's not much, but..." Jack cut me off. "Sit down." His voice was gruff-edged, with something I couldn't quite place. Anger, disappointment, both. I slowly lowered myself into the armchair, the one with the torn cushion I always tried to sew back together, but never quite managed. My mom glanced at me, then looked away. Her lips pressed so tight they almost disappeared. Jack cleared his throat. "Emily, this has gone on long enough." I blinked. "What has?" He didn't answer. Immediately just looked at me like I was something he couldn't figure out. "You're almost 30, living here like a kid, like you don't have responsibilities." My mouth went dry. "Dad, I pay half the mortgage. I cover the electric, the internet, I even buy groceries." He scoffed, a sharp, bitter sound. "A few bills don't buy you a lifetime stay, princess." That word, princess, it hit me like a slap. He used to call me that when I was little, when he'd patch up my scraped knees and say I was his little girl. Now it felt like an insult, twisted and spat back at me. "We've talked about this," Carol finally whispered, eyes fixed on the coffee table. "It's time for you to move on. Get your own place. We can't keep supporting you." My brain struggled to catch up. Supporting me? I was the one holding everything together. I paid for Dad's truck insurance, Mom's medication. I'd picked up a second job when the roof needed fixing. Supporting me? I repeated, my voice softer, more broken than I intended. "Are you serious?" Jack shifted, not looking at me. "You're too old to be freeloading. We've done enough. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. My chest tightened, pain blossoming like a bruise. "You really think I'm freeloading?" Carol opened her mouth, then shut it. Her hands trembled. I wanted her to say something, anything that showed she didn't agree, that this wasn't her decision too, but she didn't. I felt the betrayal sting deeper than I could have imagined. My hands clenched in my lap knuckles, white. Jack leaned forward, his tone colder than I'd ever heard it. "We already packed your stuff. It's by the door." A sharp, icy pain sliced through my heart. "On my birthday," I whispered, barely a breath. He didn't flinch. "You'll thank us someday." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My mind was a hurricane of memories, paychecks, cash to cover utility bills, long hours at the office, just to make sure the house didn't fall apart. And this was my reward. I stood slowly, refusing to let the tears break through. Not now. Not in front of them. "Got it," I managed barely. I didn't look back as I walked to the door, my suitcase, waiting like an abandoned promise. As I opened the door, I heard Carol's soft voice. "We still love you, honey." I froze. Just for a second. "Funny way of showing it," I replied, barely loud enough for her to hear. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing. I was done being their safety net. The night air hit my face, cold and unforgiving. I walked to my car, threw my suitcase in the trunk, and sat behind the wheel, hands trembling. The cupcake sat on the passenger seat, its small, crooked candle a cruel reminder of what today was supposed to be. I stared at it for a long moment, then swiped it off the seat. It fell to the floorboard, icing smearing against the mat. I took a shaky breath. "Happy birthday, Emily." And with that, I drove away, leaving behind the house that never really felt like home. The car's heater groaned against the crisp night air as I sat in the driver's seat, motionless, staring at the windshield. My mind felt like a scratched record stuck on one cruel phrase. "You're too old to be freeloading." Freeloading. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. How could they? I whispered the words, trembling as they left my lips. I forced myself to breathe, but each inhale felt like I was swallowing shards of glass. After a minute that felt like an hour, I pulled out my phone. The screen lit up, 8:23 p.m., no missed calls, no messages. I almost laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that got stuck somewhere between a sob and a scoff. Of course they weren't calling. Why would they? In their minds, they'd already done the right thing. I couldn't just sit there in the driveway, paralyzed. I needed to move, needed to go anywhere but here. I took one last look at the house, its windows glowing faintly warm, but not welcoming. My fingers drummed against the steering wheel as I debated where to go. One place came to mind, Lucy's, my best friend since middle school, the one person who wouldn't question me or make me feel small. I dialed her number, hoping. Emily, her voice, came through a little muffled by background noise, probably her favorite crime podcast playing in the kitchen. I tried to sound normal, but my voice betrayed me, quieter, shakier. "Hey, Lucy. You. Home." A pause. "Yeah, of course. You okay?" I hesitated. "Can I come over?" There was no need for more explanation. "Yeah, absolutely. Doors unlocked." 20 minutes later, I was parked in front of her tiny townhouse, the porch light flickering like it couldn't decide whether to stay lit or give up entirely. I dragged myself up the steps, suitcase in tow. Lucy was already at the door, her eyes widening when she saw me. "Oh my God, Em, what happened?" I tried to speak, but my throat tightened like every word was caught on a barbed wire of hurt. Lucy didn't wait for an answer, just pulled me into a hug, holding on tight. I didn't realize I'd started crying until her sweatshirt was damp against my cheek. She guided me inside, letting the suitcase slump in the hallway. The familiar smell of lavender and coffee filled the air, a strange combination that somehow always made her place feel like a sanctuary. We settled on the worn-out couch, its cushions squished from years of movie nights and late-night rants about life. Lucy handed me a mug of hot chocolate extra marshmallows, just how I liked it. I traced the rim with my thumb, trying to find the words. "They kicked me out." Her eyes widened. "Wait, what? On your birthday?" I nodded, biting back a sob. "They said I'm freeloading, that I'm too old to live there." Lucy's face, hardened anger flickering behind her soft brown eyes. "Are you freaking kidding me? After everything you've done for them? Apparently, it doesn't matter." I sniffed, wiping my cheeks with my sleeve. "I pay half the bills, Lucy. I cover their insurance, their groceries, and they just tossed me out." Lucy put her mug down, jaw clenched. "You've been busting your ass working 2 jobs just to keep that house running. They can't just treat you like this." A bitter laugh slipped out. "Well, they did." She squeezed my hand. "You're staying here. No questions, no time limit." Relief washed over me, but guilt followed close behind like a shadow. "I hate that I'm putting you out," Lucy scoffed. "Stop. You would do the same for me in a heartbeat." I managed a faint smile, but the heaviness lingered. My mind was still spinning fragments of tonight, replaying in painful loops. I could almost hear Jack's voice, cold and indifferent. "You'll thank us someday." As we sat there, Lucy pulled a fuzzy blanket over my shoulders. "You know," she began, her tone gentler, "sometimes people get so used to taking, they forget how to give back." I nodded, half listening, half stuck in my own thoughts. Lucy squeezed my hand again. "They're wrong, Em. You're not a burden. You never were." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel like I deserved better, but years of being told otherwise. It's not that easy to shake off. The doorbell rang, jolting us both. Lucy frowned. "Who the hell?" She peeked through the peephole, then glanced back at me, eyes wide with disbelief. "It's Jack!" My stomach dropped, nausea hitting like a punch. I didn't move, didn't breathe. "What do you want to do?" Lucy whispered, eyes searching mine. My instincts screamed, "Ignore him," but curiosity mixed with a faint flicker of hope kept me glued to the spot. Maybe he'd changed his mind. Maybe he realized how much I was doing for them. Lucy hesitated, then pulled back from the door. "Your call, Emily." I clenched the blanket tighter, words stuck in my throat. After a long minute, Jack's shadow moved away from the door. I peeked through the blinds, watched him slump back to his truck, looking less confident, more confused. He didn't see me, but I saw him. The way he stared at the steering wheel, fists clenched. He stayed parked there for a while, before finally pulling out of the driveway. Lucy exhaled. "Coward!" I tried to smile, tried to feel vindicated, but all I felt was hollow, like something essential had been ripped out of me. Lucy nudged me. "Hey, let's order pizza. Extra cheese, extra everything. You need it." And as I watched Jack's truck disappear into the night, I realized I needed more than just pizza. I needed to figure out who I was without them. The hum of Lucy's space heater buzzed in the background, barely cutting through the chill that had settled in my bones. I curled up on the couch, Lucy's cat Pickles curled up beside me, purring softly. The blanket felt warm, safe, but my mind was still somewhere back at that house, wondering how it all went so wrong. Lucy sat at the dining table tapping away on her laptop, but I knew she was keeping an eye on me. The pizza box between us was almost empty, just a few cold slices left, but neither of us moved to finish them. I traced the rim of my coffee cup, trying to absorb the steam against my face. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, another notification. I didn't need to look. I knew it was Jack or Carol, probably both. I'd already ignored 3 missed calls and a text that just said, "You've really done it now." My stomach twisted. Maybe I should just pick up, see what they want. Lucy shot me a glare from across the room. Absolutely not. They kick you out on your birthday, then harass you after. Screw that. I bit my lip. But what if it's important? What if something happened to Emily? Lucy's voice softened, but her eyes stayed fierce. You can't keep letting them control you, not anymore. I swallowed hard, the guilt settling like a rock in my chest. Lucy stood up and stretched, trying to ease the tension in her shoulders. You need to start thinking about yourself. For once. I knew she was right. But how could I do that when my whole life had been wrapped up in them? I'd been paying bills since I was 19, covering rent when Dad lost his job making grocery runs when Mom was too sick to leave the house. But none of that mattered now. I was the villain, the ungrateful daughter who couldn't take a hint. Emily, listen. Lucy pulled the laptop closer. You need to protect yourself. You have your own bank account right separate from theirs. I hesitated. Sort of, but I left some of my direct deposits linked to our joint account, just in case. Her eyes widened. You need to change that right now. They could drain your money. My stomach dropped. You think they would? Lucy didn't answer directly, but the look in her eyes said enough. We spent the next hour canceling every autopay, switching my checks to my personal account, freezing the shared credit card. My hands were shaking as I typed the reality of it all sinking in. When I finally hit confirm on the last transaction, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Lucy squeezed my shoulder. That's it. You're taking back your life. It doesn't feel like it, I whispered. It just feels like I'm being selfish. She leaned in, forcing me to meet her gaze. Emily, standing up for yourself isn't selfish. They taught you that so you'd always be at their mercy. It's messed up and you deserve better. Her words struck something inside me, a spark. Maybe she was right. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from my coworker Daniel. Hey, everything okay? Saw your dad at the gas station. He looked pissed. Just wanted to check in. My fingers hovered over the screen. How did I even begin to explain? Lucy raised an eyebrow. Daniel, the cute one from work, I rolled my eyes. He's just being nice. She smirked. Yeah, nice and definitely into you. My cheeks warmed, but I ignored her teasing. I just typed back a quick, thanks, Daniel. Just a rough night. I'll explain later. A minute later he responded, I'm here if you need to talk. Or a distraction. Coffee sometime. I couldn't help the small smile that tugged at my lips. Lucy snatched the phone, grinning. Say yes. You could use something good right now. I took the phone back, hesitating, then finally typed, coffee sounds nice. The feeling of victory was short-lived. A loud pounding on the door made me jump, my heart racing. Lucy froze, eyes wide. Stay here, she whispered, creeping to the peephole. She turned back, mouthing, It's your dad. I couldn't move, could barely breathe. Jack's voice boomed through the door. Emily, open up, we need to talk. Lucy looked at me, waiting for my cue. I shook my head, whispering, No, I can't. I can't do this right now. She nodded and spoke through the door. Jack, she doesn't want to see you. Leave now. He muttered something, frustration bleeding into his tone. It's family business, none of your concern. Lucy didn't budge. She's not talking to you tonight. Go home. Silence stretched, and I could almost feel Jack's anger through the door. After what felt like forever, his footsteps stomped down the porch steps. Lucy peeked out again, watching his truck pull away. She exhaled heavily. What an ass. I sank back into the couch, tears brimming but refusing to fall. He's never acted like this before. Lucy joined me, patting my knee. People show their true colors when they lose control. He's pissed because you're not bending over backward for him anymore. My phone dinged again, a message from Carol. You've hurt your father. He's devastated. How could you be so heartless? The words blurred through my tears, but Lucy snatched the phone, deleting the message before I could respond. Nope, not tonight. You're not getting sucked back in. She was right. I couldn't let them pull me back into that toxic cycle. I needed to remember. I had a choice. I leaned into Lucy's shoulder, exhausted. Why does it feel like I'm the one who did something wrong? She stroked my hair, her voice soft. Because they made you believe that for years. It's not your fault, Em. For the first time in a long while, I let myself believe it. Just a little. The morning light seeped through Lucy's thin curtains, gently warming my face. I cracked my eyes open, feeling the weight of last night still pressing down on me. Pickles was sprawled across my lap, purring like a little furry engine, completely oblivious to my chaos. For a minute, I just let myself breathe. Lucy's coffee maker gurgled in the kitchen, and the familiar smell pulled me to my feet. I shuffled in hair a mess, eyes puffy, and found her leaning against the counter, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up and gave me a soft smile. "Hey you okay?" I shrugged, wrapping my hands around the warm mug she handed me. "Still feels like a bad dream." She nodded. "Yeah, but it's real. You're here, not there, and that's a good thing." I stared at the steam curling from my cup, trying to wrap my head around it. "He came here last night, just pounding on the door. He's never done that before." Lucy's eyes darkened. "Because he knows you're done playing his game. When people like him lose control, they panic. You took away his safety net." My phone vibrated on the table. I didn't have to look to know who it was. Lucy picked it up, glanced at the screen, and hit ignore without hesitation. "What did it say?" I whispered. "Just more guilt tripping. Your mom this time, something about how your dad didn't sleep all night, how he's so worried about you." I scoffed, bitterness creeping into my voice. "Worried about what? Who's going to pay the electric bill next month?" Lucy gave me a proud look. "There you go, finally saying it out loud." I took a long sip of coffee, trying to chase away the anger buzzing in my chest. I don't get it. I thought family was supposed to, take care of each other." She leaned against the counter, folding her arms. "Family should, but that's not what they've been doing. They've been using you, Emily." A loud knock on the door startled both of us. Lucy's eyes flicked to mine, uncertainty written all over her face. She crept toward the peephole and glanced out. "It's just Daniel," she whispered, relief evident. She opened the door, and Daniel stepped in holding a takeout tray with 3 large coffees and a bag of donuts. His sandy hair was a little disheveled, like he'd just woken up too. "Hey, I figured you could use some breakfast," he said, offering a lopsided smile. I managed a small grin. "You didn't have to." "Well, I kinda owed you one, after you covered my shift last week," he joked, handing me a coffee. Lucy raised an eyebrow at me, her "I told you so" look flashing across her face. We settled around the small dining table, Daniel in the chair across from me. He took a sip of his coffee and leaned forward. "So, I saw your dad at the gas station last night. He was ranting, saying you'd left them high and dry, kept calling you ungrateful." My stomach twisted. "Of course he did." Daniel's voice softened. "I didn't believe it, not for a second. I know how much you do for them. Hell, half the town knows." My eyes widened. "They do?" He nodded. "People see you working those long shifts, juggling 2 jobs, keeping that house together. Everyone knows you're the one keeping things running." For the first time in a long while, I felt something close to validation. Lucy snorted. "So why is the whole town treating her like the villain now?" Daniel hesitated, his gaze dropping. "People love a sob story, and your dad's been spinning one, saying you just walked out, that you've been a burden for years." My jaw clenched, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. "That's not even close to the truth," I muttered. Daniel reached across the table, gently touching my hand. "I know, and I think the people who actually know you know that too." I swallowed the lump in my throat, grateful for the small comfort. The day dragged on, a blur of calls I didn't answer, and guilt that wouldn't let go. I kept glancing at the window, half expecting Jack's truck to come barreling back up the driveway. Lucy was busy helping a client over the phone, her freelance design gig, keeping her glued to her laptop. Daniel stayed keeping me company, and it was nice, safe. At some point we ended up talking about everything but my parents. I found myself laughing, actually laughing, when Daniel tried to recount his last date, where the girl spent half the night live tweeting his awkward attempts at small talk. "I guess I just don't do well under pressure," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. I grinned. "You're doing fine now." He looked at me, eyes softening. "Maybe because I feel like I can actually talk to you." My cheeks burned. "Thanks for not believing them. It means more than you know." He gave me that crooked smile again. "Anytime." That night after Daniel left, I sat by the window staring at the city lights blinking against the dark sky. Lucy came over, handing me a bowl of ice cream cookie dough, my favorite. "You know, he really likes you," she teased. I rolled my eyes but couldn't help the smile. "It's just nice to feel like I'm not crazy, like someone believes me." Lucy nudged me with her shoulder. "You're not crazy, you're just finding your voice, and trust me, it's about damn time." I let out a long breath, leaning back. "I think I'm ready to start over. Figure out what I want." Lucy grinned. "Then let's make a plan. Step 1, no more letting them take advantage. Step 2, start doing things for you." For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope, like maybe, just maybe, I could build a life that wasn't dictated by guilt. I wasn't sure how to get there, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across Lucy's living room floor. I was curled up on the worn-out armchair phone, buzzing on my lap like an angry wasp. I hadn't touched it since last night, too afraid of what new messages might be waiting. Lucy was in the kitchen making dinner, something with too much garlic, if the smell was any indication. She hummed to herself, trying to keep the mood light. My phone buzzed again. Reluctantly, I picked it up. "New message, Mom. Emily, your father is devastated. I can't believe you're doing this to us. You need to come home. Fix this." I bit my lip hard until I tasted copper. Lucy glanced over, catching my expression. "Another guilt trip." I nodded, handing her the phone. She read it, her eyes narrowing. "They're unbelievable. After everything, they still think you're the problem." I felt my stomach twist. Maybe I should just go back. "Maybe if I apologize." Lucy slammed the spoon down on the counter, sauce splattering. "Absolutely not, Emily. You don't owe them anything. You've given up enough of your life." I took a deep breath, but it came out shaky. "But the whole town thinks I'm a monster. Everywhere I go, they look at me like I've abandoned them." Lucy wiped her hands on a towel and came over, sitting on the arm of the chair. "That's because they don't know the truth. They only know what your parents are telling them." I frowned, trying to process it all. "So, what am I supposed to do? Walk around with a sign saying, 'I'm not a heartless daughter'?" Lucy smiled softly. "Or you could just start telling your side. Stop hiding." Later that evening, I decided to go for a walk, needed to clear my head. Lucy insisted on coming along just in case. As we wandered through the small downtown area, I could feel the weight of eyes on me, people whispering behind cupped hands. We passed Sam's Diner, the place where half the town gathered on weeknights. I saw Mrs. Hargrove sitting by the window, her eyes narrowing when she spotted me. Lucy nudged me. "Keep walking, they don't matter." But I couldn't help it. I pushed open the door, ignoring the way the bell overhead chimed way too loudly. The din of conversation dropped instantly, like someone had hit a mute button. Mrs. Hargrove turned in her seat, giving me that pitying look that made my skin crawl. Well, if it isn't the prodigal daughter. I swallowed hard. "Hi, Mrs. Hargrove." She arched an eyebrow. "Your poor father was in here last night, said you'd abandoned them." "That true?" Lucy scoffed. "Seriously, you're just going to take his word without hearing her side?" Mrs. Hargrove's lips pursed. "I've known Jack Harper for 30 years. He's a good man, never heard him say a bad word about his kids before." My throat felt tight, like I was suffocating under their judgment. I took a deep breath, my voice trembling. "You know what's funny? No one bothered to ask me why I left. They just assumed I was some selfish, ungrateful daughter." A few other patrons shifted uncomfortably, some looking at me for the first time. "My parents kicked me out on my birthday. Said I was freeloading after I spent years covering their bills, working extra shifts to keep the lights on." Mrs. Hargrove's expression faltered. "That doesn't sound like Jack." Lucy snorted. "Yeah, well, maybe you don't know him as well as you think." I didn't know where this courage came from, but I felt it bubbling up. I've been their crutch for years, and the second I needed support, they pushed me out. Now they're spreading lies to make themselves look like the victims. Silence settled over the diner, thicker than the smell of greasy fries. One of the cooks, Dave, a guy I went to high school with, poked his head out of the kitchen. "Is that true, Emily?" I nodded, tears prickling the back of my eyes. I didn't just walk out, I was thrown out. And now they're making me out to be the villain because I finally said no. "Mrs." Hargrove's eyes softened. "Why would they do that?" I shrugged, feeling the hurt like a knife twisting. maybe because they never expected me to fight back. Lucy slipped her arm through mine, squeezing gently. You don't have to explain yourself to people who don't care enough to ask. I nodded, my heart still pounding, but it felt like a weight had been lifted just a little. As we left the diner, I could hear the murmur of conversations picking up again this time, with a different tone. Maybe I hadn't changed everyone's minds, but I'd planted a seed. We walked down to the small park at the edge of town. The old swings creaked in the breeze, and Lucy plopped onto one, motioning for me to take the other. You did good back there, she said, her voice softer. I managed a shaky laugh. I feel like I just ran a marathon. Lucy grinned. That's because you just faced your first battle, and you didn't let them walk all over you. I looked at the darkening sky, the first stars peeking through the twilight. What if they hate me for it? She kicked at the dirt with her sneakers. Then they never really knew you, or cared enough to see the truth. You don't need people like that. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Daniel. Saw you at the diner. Proud of you. Want to grab coffee tomorrow. I couldn't help but smile. Maybe things are changing, little by little. Lucy glanced over and smirked. Yeah, and maybe this is the start of you actually living for yourself. The words hung in the air like they were trying to find a place to settle in my heart. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt a little lighter, and I realized Lucy was right. I didn't need to be their crutch anymore. I could finally start standing on my own. The next morning, the sky was overcast gray and heavy, like it couldn't decide whether to rain or just sulk. I was standing by Lucy's small kitchen window, watching droplets form on the glass, my hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. Lucy was in the living room folding a load of laundry, humming softly to some indie song playing from her Bluetooth speaker. Pickles was curled up on the couch, oblivious to my anxiety. My phone buzzed on the counter again. I hesitated, then glanced at the screen. A text from Daniel. Coffee at the park today. Thought you might need a break. I couldn't help but smile despite the knot in my stomach. Sounds good. Meet you at noon. Lucy must have sensed my mood because she wandered over, plopping onto the counter stool beside me. You okay? I shrugged. I feel like the whole town's watching me, like I'm under some weird twisted microscope. She nudged me with her elbow. You did the right thing last night, standing up for yourself. Trust me, that little speech at the diner, it's going to change things. I wasn't so sure. By the time I made it to Brookdale Park, the drizzle had started soft and steady. Daniel was already there, leaning against the back of a picnic bench with 2 takeaway cups. He gave me that easy smile when I walked up. Didn't think you'd come out in this weather? He teased. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. Coffee's worth it. He handed me the cup, his fingers brushing mine for just a second. A tiny jolt went through me. We sat on the bench under the big maple tree, the leaves dripping, but the branches thick enough to keep most of the rain off. Daniel took a sip and glanced sideways at me. Heard about the diner. I bit my lip. It was kind of spur of the moment. He laughed, a low, warm sound. Sometimes those are the best. People needed to hear your side. I looked down at my cup. You really think they listened? Daniel shrugged. People talk. You know how it is. But some of them are starting to see things differently. My mom called me this morning, said she always thought it was odd how your parents never seemed to struggle financially, even when your dad was out of work. My chest tightened. Because I covered the gap. I worked overtime, picked up extra shifts. They just let everyone think they were managing fine. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not fair. You shouldn't have had to do all that. His tone caught me off guard, like he was genuinely angry on my behalf. I took a shaky breath. I thought family meant you looked out for each other. I didn't expect them to just throw me away. He reached over, hesitant, then gently touched my shoulder. You deserved better. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I'm starting to think that too. Just then, I heard footsteps on the gravel path. I glanced up and froze. Mrs. Hargrove was heading toward us, umbrella in one hand and a determined look on her face. Daniel shot me a questioning glance. Want me to stay? I nodded, my heart pounding. She stopped a few feet away, her expression softer than I expected. Emily. I nodded cautiously. Hi, Mrs. Hargrove. She hesitated, then let out a sigh. I wanted to apologize. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. After what you said last night, I realized maybe I didn't know the whole story. I blinked, unsure how to respond. Your dad's been going around saying you abandoned them, but I talked to a few folks this morning, heard about how much you've been doing for them all these years. It just didn't add up. My stomach did a nervous flip. People are actually questioning him. She nodded. A few of us are. You know how Jack is always the loudest voice in the room, but sometimes loud doesn't mean right. Daniel squeezed my shoulder gently. I could feel a strange mix of relief and guilt bubbling up. Thank you, I whispered. Mrs. Hargrove gave me a sad smile. Sometimes parents forget that their kids aren't their caretakers. You did more than most would. Just wanted you to know. I'm sorry for what I said before. I managed a weak smile. Thanks for saying that. She glanced at Daniel and nodded. You take care of her. She deserves a little kindness. After she left, Daniel looked at me, his expression thoughtful. See, not everyone's against you. A shaky laugh slipped out. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not the bad guy. He smiled, handing me his scarf when the wind picked up. You never were. They just made you believe that. When I got back to Lucy's, she was on the phone looking animated. She waved me over, her eyes lighting up. Emily, you won't believe this. My friend Jenna works at the pharmacy. She said your mom was in there this morning talking to Mrs. Wallace about how you betrayed the family. I felt my stomach knot up. Of course she was, Lucy grinned. But then Mrs. Wallace straight up asked her why you'd leave after paying all those bills. Said she remembered you covering Jack's meds last summer when he messed up his shoulder. I blinked, trying to process it. People are actually questioning them? Lucy nodded, her smile widening. You started something last night. People are talking, realizing maybe your parents haven't been so honest. For the first time in days, a genuine sense of hope blossomed. I wasn't sure where this was going, but I knew one thing. I wasn't alone anymore. As I sat down at the kitchen table, Lucy poured me another cup of coffee. You did good, Em. Sometimes the truth just needs a little push. I looked out the window, the rain finally letting up sunlight breaking through the clouds. Maybe it wasn't over. Maybe this was just the beginning. The next few days passed in a blur of cautious hope and lingering tension. The whispers around town had started shifting like a slow, cautious tide. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me from curling into myself and giving up. Lucy insisted on dragging me out for errands, claiming that holing up in her apartment like a recluse wasn't doing me any good. I wasn't entirely convinced, but when she waved her car keys in front of my face like some kind of victory flag, I didn't have the heart to argue. We pulled up to the small strip of shops on Maple Avenue, the heart of Brookdale. The air was still damp from yesterday's rain, and puddles dotted the sidewalks. I kept my head down, hands stuffed in my jacket pockets, hoping not to draw attention. Lucy nudged me with her elbow. You can't keep hiding, Em. People are going to talk no matter what. Might as well hold your head high. I tried to muster up some confidence, but it felt like trying to light a soggy match. As we walked past the bakery, I caught a familiar voice calling out, Emily! Turning, I saw Mrs. Wallace stepping out of the pharmacy, her gray hair tucked under a floral scarf. She gave me a hesitant smile. Can I talk to you for a minute, dear? Lucy squeezed my hand before stepping into the nearby coffee shop, giving us some space. I swallowed nerves, twisting in my gut, but managed a nod. Mrs. Wallace approached cautiously. I heard about what happened. Your mom was in here the other day saying some pretty harsh things. I looked at the ground, not sure where this was going. She reached out and touched my arm gently. I didn't believe her, not after what you said at the diner. And you know what? A lot of people are starting to think something's off. Your mom kept saying how devastated they were that you left. But when I asked why, she got all flustered. A tiny spark of vindication flickered to life. She didn't tell you the part where they kicked me out on my birthday. Mrs. Wallace shook her head, frowning. No, she didn't mention that. Just kept going on about how they raised you right and how you'd lost your way. My stomach twisted. They've been spinning stories like that for years. No one ever asked me how things really were. Her expression softened. Maybe we just didn't want to see it. You're a good girl, Emily. Always have been. Sometimes parents just don't know how to let go. I forced a small, grateful smile. Thanks for believing me. She patted my hand, giving me a reassuring nod. You hang in there. People are starting to see through it. Just give it time. When I ducked into the coffee shop, Lucy was chatting with Jenna, the barista, who used to sit behind me in math class. Jenna smiled when she saw me. Hey, Emily, your usual. I hesitated. Yeah, just a latte, thanks. As she started the espresso machine, Lucy shot me a proud look. See? Not everyone's buying into your parents' drama? I took a seat at the small wooden table by the window, trying to absorb the small victory. Just as I started to relax, my phone buzzed an unknown number. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello. A familiar voice came through, tentative and shaky. Emily, it's Aunt Linda. I froze, barely able to process hearing from my dad's sister after so many years. Aunt Linda, I didn't expect you to call. She let out a long sigh. I just heard what happened. Your dad's been calling everyone, spinning his version of the story, but I wanted to hear it from you. I swallowed back the lump in my throat. They kicked me out on my birthday, said I was freeloading. After all these years of helping with bills. Linda's voice softened. I'm so sorry. I always knew Jack could be stubborn, but I didn't think he'd do something like this. He thinks I owe them like it's my job to keep the house running. She was quiet for a moment. Your mom always had a way of making him think they couldn't survive without you. I just never thought it would come to this. My hands shook. They've convinced everyone I'm this selfish, ungrateful daughter. Linda's voice dropped almost a whisper. You know how your dad is. He hates admitting weakness. And your mom, well, she feeds into it. I just wanted to let you know you're not crazy. You deserve to have your own life. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. Thank you. I needed to hear that. After the call ended, Lucy slid my latte across the table, watching me carefully. Everything okay? I nodded slowly. My aunt called, she believes me, said my dad's pride wouldn't let him admit he needed help, and my mom just went along with it. Lucy sipped her coffee thoughtfully. It's a start. Maybe once the dust settles, more people will see the truth. I wiped my eyes, trying to hold on to that small glimmer of hope. That evening back at Lucy's, I started browsing apartment listings, something small. Something just for me. I didn't have much saved, but I was done living under someone else's roof. When I found a listing for a little studio above the bookstore on Elm Street, my heart skipped a beat. Cozy, affordable, and right in the heart of town. I hit message landlord before I could second-guess myself. A few minutes later, my phone pinged. Hi, Emily. Studio is available, can show it tomorrow at noon. I could hardly believe it. A place of my own. No strings, no guilt. Lucy peeked over my shoulder. You serious about this one? I nodded more confidently than I felt. Yeah, I think it's time, she beamed. Hell yeah, it's time. Fresh start, right? Maybe it was the caffeine or the way Lucy's optimism was rubbing off on me, but for the first time, I felt a tiny flicker of excitement. No more guilt, no more wondering if I was enough. I was building something new, just for me. The next morning the sky hung low gray and heavy, as if even the weather was hesitant to commit. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. I glanced down and felt my stomach drop. Unknown number. For a second I just stared at it, fingers hovering, then against my better judgment I picked up. Hello? There was a pause, a shuffling sound, and then a gruff, familiar voice. Emily, it's Dad! I didn't know what to say, my heart pounding so hard it drowned out the static in my head. What do you want? He cleared his throat, but there was no softness, just cold, clipped words. You need to come home. Your mom's a wreck. You're destroying this family. I swallowed hard. No, Dad. You destroyed it when you kicked me out. You think I haven't been hurt by this. You think this was easy for me. He scoffed a bitter, resentful sound. We did what we had to. You're too old to be living off us. A wave of anger surged through me. Living off you, I paid half the bills. I covered groceries, your truck insurance, Mom's medication. I was practically supporting you. His voice dropped to a dangerous level. You ungrateful little... I cut him off. No, I'm done. I'm done being blamed. You didn't appreciate a damn thing I did for you. Silence hung thick between us, and then he let out a long breath. You'll regret this, Emily. Mark my words. The line went dead. Lucy walked into the kitchen, towel wrapped around her hair. "Everything okay?" I put the phone down, trying to steady my breathing. That was my dad, saying I'm destroying the family. She looked furious. "Unbelievable! They're the ones who tossed you out. Don't let them twist it around." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, this time a text from Aunt Linda. "Hey, sweetheart. Just a heads up, your dad's been talking to a lawyer. Something about financial abandonment." My pulse quickened and my hands went numb. Lucy took the phone from me, her eyes scanning the text. "Are they seriously threatening you with legal action? That's insane." I felt a lump rise in my throat. "Can they do that, after everything?" She shook her head. "They can try, but that doesn't mean they'll win. You need to talk to someone, get legal advice before they pull something." My mind raced, flashes of courtroom dramas spinning through my head, my parents painting me as some selfish monster. I couldn't let that happen. A few hours later, I found myself sitting in a small law office, the receptionist tapping away on her keyboard while I stared at the legal pamphlets on the table. Lucy sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on mine. The door opened, and a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a kind smile approached. "Emily Harper, I'm Maggie Thompson. Come on in." We followed her into a cozy office with framed diplomas and a small cluttered desk. I barely managed to introduce myself before the tears hit hot, uninvited, spilling over, despite my attempts to hold it together. Maggie handed me a tissue, waiting patiently. "Take your time." I wiped my cheeks, embarrassed. I don't understand how they can do this. I was paying their bills. I was taking care of them. And now they're saying I abandoned them." Maggie nodded thoughtfully. "Did you have any formal agreements about finances, a lease, a shared account?" I explained everything, the joint bank account, the bills, in my name, how I'd been handling the finances for years. She made some notes, her brow furrowing. "From what you're telling me, it sounds more like financial exploitation than abandonment." I looked up confused. "What do you mean?" Maggie leaned back in her chair. "If they were using your income to cover household expenses without contributing themselves or forcing you to manage their financial obligations, it could be considered exploitation. If they're claiming abandonment, they'll have to prove you had a legal obligation to support them, which by the sound of it, they can't." Relief washed over me, but it was tinged with frustration. They're trying to ruin me, just because I walked away. Maggie gave me a sympathetic smile. "Sometimes when people lose control, they lash out. Your parents are trying to scare you back into submission. Don't let them." That night back at Lucy's, I curled up on the couch, mind racing. I couldn't believe how far they were willing to go just to keep me in their orbit. I kept replaying the conversation with Maggie in my head, her firm assurance that I had legal grounds to defend myself. Lucy came in with a bowl of popcorn, plopping down beside me. "You okay?" I shrugged. "I guess. I just never thought they'd actually try to sue me." She rolled her eyes. "It's not about the money, Em. It's about control. They want you scared enough to come crawling back." I bit my lip. "I won't. I can't. I can't live like that anymore." Lucy pulled me into a side hug, resting her head on my shoulder. "And you shouldn't have to. You're doing the right thing standing up for yourself. Don't let them take that away." A few hours later, while scrolling through social media, I saw my dad's Facebook post. "Some daughters don't know how to be grateful. After all we did, she left us high and dry. Pray for us." It already had 100 likes and dozens of sympathetic comments. I stared at it frozen, wondering how many more people would think I was heartless. Lucy peeked over my shoulder, her jaw clenching. They really went there, huh? I couldn't hold it in anymore, the hurt, the betrayal. I covered my face with my hands, sobbing quietly. Lucy rubbed my back, whispering, "Let it out, Em. It's okay." When I finally pulled myself together, I wiped my face and looked at her. "I'm not giving in. If they want to take this to court, I'll fight them. I'm done being their scapegoat." She grinned proud. "Now that's the Emily I know. We'll fight them. You're not alone in this." Somewhere deep inside, I felt something harden, like a knot finally untying itself. I wasn't just fighting them, I was fighting for myself. The next few days felt like I was living in the eye of a hurricane, calm on the surface, but I knew something was brewing, something I couldn't control. I was trying to settle into a routine at Lucy's house job, hunting browsing apartment listings and ignoring the incessant buzzing of my phone. But the storm was closing in. One evening, just as Lucy and I were debating whether leftover pizza counted as dinner, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Maggie Thompson. My heart thudded. I quickly answered. "Hi, Maggie." Her voice was calm, but firm. "Emily, I just received something from your parents' lawyer. They've officially filed a claim alleging financial abandonment and emotional distress. I felt the air leave my lungs. They're actually going through with it. I'm afraid so. But don't worry, we have a strong case. I just wanted to prepare you. They're not going to back down easily." My hands shook as I hung up. Lucy gave me a worried look, and I told her everything. She paced the small kitchen, her face red with anger. "They're out of their damn minds. After everything you did for them, now they want to drag you through court." I sank onto the couch, feeling like I was floating above myself, disconnected. I thought maybe they'd cool down. I didn't think they'd actually do it. Lucy sat next to me, squeezing my hand. "You're stronger than this, Emily. You didn't do anything wrong." A knock at the door made us both jump. Lucy peeked through the peephole and muttered, "It's Daniel." She swung the door open, and he stepped inside, his usual easy smile replaced with a look of concern. "Hey, I just heard from Jenna. Your dad's been telling everyone you're planning to sue him for money. Is that true?" My jaw dropped. "What? No. I would never." Daniel exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "People are talking, saying you're just trying to bleed your parents dry. It's getting ugly." Lucy huffed. "Of course it is. Jack's manipulating the story again, making her look like the bad guy." I buried my face in my hands. I don't know what to do. They're turning the whole town against me. Daniel knelt in front of me, his hands gently pulling mine away from my face. "You can't just sit back and take it. You need to fight back publicly." I shook my head. "That's not me. I don't want to drag our mess through the mud like they are." He looked at me, steady, reassuring. "Sometimes standing up for yourself means getting a little dirty. You can't just let them ruin your reputation. You have a right to tell your side." Lucy nodded in agreement. "Daniel's right. If you don't, people will just believe whatever Jack feeds them." That night, we crafted a plan. I didn't want to air everything, but I needed people to know the truth. Lucy set up her phone on a makeshift tripod while I sat on the couch trying to keep my hands from shaking. Daniel sat next to me, his presence grounding me. "Whenever you're ready," he whispered. I took a deep breath, looking directly into the camera. "Hi everyone, this isn't easy for me, but I need to clear the air." I paused, my heart pounding. There's been a lot of talk lately about me leaving home, about why I'm not living with my parents anymore, and I know my dad's been telling people I'm suing them or that I abandoned them. None of that is true. Lucy gave me a thumbs up from behind the camera. "The truth is, my parents kicked me out. On my birthday, after I spent years paying bills, covering groceries, handling their finances while working 2 jobs, and when I finally couldn't take it anymore, they decided I was the problem." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "I never wanted to make this public. I still love them, but I can't let them keep hurting me. I just want to move on with my life, and they won't let me." I looked down for a moment, feeling the weight of my own words. I didn't abandon them. I didn't try to hurt them. I just needed to live for myself. Daniel reached out, taking my hand and giving it a comforting squeeze. I looked back at the camera. "I'm not asking anyone to pick sides. I just want people to know the truth. Thank you for listening." Lucy stopped recording and gave me a soft smile. "You did great." We uploaded the video that night. Within hours, it started getting reactions, likes, comments, shares. I couldn't believe how many people were reaching out, old friends, former classmates, even some of my parents' neighbors. One message caught my eye from Mr. Wallace, the old retired mechanic who lived 2 houses down from my parents. "I had no idea, Emily. Your dad's been telling everyone you just left without a word. I'm so sorry they put you through this." Tears pricked my eyes, part relief, part pain. Daniel wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "See, the truth's coming out." The next morning, Lucy woke me with her phone in hand. You need to see this." I squinted at the screen. Jack had posted a furious rant on Facebook calling me a liar, a manipulator claiming I twisted the truth to make him look bad. The post was filled with angry, all-caps sentences and more guilt-tripping. But what surprised me, what made my heart skip a beat, were the comments underneath. People were pushing back, questioning his story, pointing out inconsistencies. One comment from Mrs. Hargrove stood out. "Jack, I saw Emily's video. If she was paying your bills all these years, how come you never mentioned it? Why didn't you say anything about kicking her out on her birthday?" I glanced at Lucy, hope flickering in my chest. They're not just believing him anymore. Daniel, who'd just walked in with a bag of bagels, grinned. People are seeing through his act. They're finally questioning it. For the first time, I felt something like victory. I wasn't just surviving, I was pushing back, and it felt good. The courtroom was colder than I expected, sterile, almost suffocating. I could hear the murmur of voices blending into a low, anxious hum around me. Lucy squeezed my hand as we sat at the plaintiff's table. My heart pounded in my chest, every beat echoing like a drum in my ears. Across the room I saw them, Jack and Carol, sitting with their lawyer. Jack looked stern jaw, clenched eyes, fixed forward like he was preparing for battle. Carol kept her head down, wringing her hands, casting nervous glances around the room. Maggie leaned over, her voice calm but firm. "You're going to do great, Emily. Just stick to the truth. We have the evidence, we just need to present it clearly." I nodded, trying to swallow the fear rising in my throat. The judge, a middle-aged woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, called the session to order. My legs felt like they were filled with lead, but I stood when my name was called. Jack's lawyer went first, painting me as an ungrateful daughter, someone who had taken advantage of her parents' kindness and then abandoned them when they needed me most. I could barely keep my hands from shaking as he spoke, twisting the story to make me sound like a selfish monster. When it was my turn, Maggie guided me gently to the witness stand. I glanced over at Lucy. She gave me a small, encouraging smile. Maggie started with simple questions: how long I'd lived with my parents, what my financial contributions were. I answered honestly, fighting back the tears that threatened to choke me. "Emily," Maggie said softly, "why did you decide to move out?" I took a deep breath, letting the air steady me. "I didn't decide. They kicked me out on my birthday." Gasps rippled through the small audience. I didn't dare look at Jack, but I could feel his glare boring into me. Maggie continued, showing the court the bank statement's proof of my payments for the mortgage, utilities, groceries. The evidence spoke for itself, but I could see Jack squirming, angry that his narrative was falling apart. "Did your parents ever express gratitude for your financial support?" Maggie asked. I hesitated, remembering the countless nights I stayed up working, exhausted, just to make sure the power didn't get cut off. "No, they just expected it. When I couldn't keep up, they made me feel like I was failing them." Maggie gave a reassuring nod before addressing the judge. "Your Honor, it's clear that Emily Harper was not a financial burden. In fact, she was a primary provider, something that her parents failed to acknowledge. Instead of supporting her independence, they chose to cast her out and then accuse her of abandonment. We ask that the court dismiss these baseless claims." After Maggie sat down, Jack's lawyer called him to the stand. He walked up confidently, but I saw the cracks his usual bravado seemed forced, his hands gripping the railing too tightly. "Your Honor," he began, his voice strained, "my daughter has always been difficult. We did everything for her, raised her, paid for her schooling, and when it was time for her to give back, she just couldn't handle it." I felt my blood boil. How dare he twist things like that? The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Harper, did your daughter ever willingly contribute to household expenses?" Jack hesitated too long. "Well, yeah, sometimes, but that doesn't mean she should be able to walk away. Family sticks together." Maggie seized the moment, standing up. "Mr. Harper, is it true that Emily was covering the majority of your household bills, including your car insurance and grocery expenses?" He looked caught off guard. "She helped out, yeah, but that doesn't mean she didn't owe us. We raised her." The judge frowned. "Are you suggesting that parental care creates a lifelong financial obligation?" Jack stammered, clearly not prepared for that question. "Well, I just think family should take care of family." The judge took a moment to review the documents, then addressed both sides. "The evidence presented clearly shows that Miss Harper was not a financial burden, but rather a significant contributor. The court finds no grounds for the claim of financial abandonment, My heart leapt into my throat relief, washing over me so quickly I thought I might pass out. Lucy squeezed my hand, whispering, "You did it." But it wasn't over. The judge wasn't done. Additionally, given the evidence of financial exploitation, I am advising that Miss Harper file a separate claim to recover expenses unfairly placed upon her. My head whipped around, eyes wide. I hadn't even thought about that. Jack's face turned beet-red fury seeping from every pore. She's our daughter. We had a right to ask for help. The judge looked unimpressed. Mr. Harper asking for help is one thing, demanding it while threatening legal action is another. Your case is dismissed. The gavel hit solid final. As we left the courthouse, I felt light, like 1,000-pound weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Maggie gave me a nod, her professional demeanor softening. You did well, Emily. Now, think about that separate claim. You deserve compensation for all those years of carrying their load. I looked at Lucy, unsure. She grinned. Damn right you do. They've bled you dry time to take back what's yours. Daniel was waiting outside, leaning against his car. When he saw me, his face broke into a huge smile. I heard, "You won." I nodded, still processing it. He pulled me into a hug, warm and strong. I knew you could do it. I buried my face in his shoulder, finally, allowing myself to cry not from sadness or fear, but from relief. When I pulled back, Daniel wiped a tear from my cheek. You okay? I nodded, laughing through the tears. Yeah, I think I will be. As we drove away, I couldn't help but feel something new, something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. That night back at Lucy's apartment, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing flashes of the courtroom, Jack's angry face, the judge's final ruling, all spinning in my head like a chaotic reel. I lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the cracked ceiling, trying to process it all. I had won. I had stood up for myself finally, and yet, why did it still feel like something was broken? A soft knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. Emily. Lucy's voice was barely above a whisper. I sat up, wiping at my cheeks, though I wasn't even sure why I'd been crying. Can't sleep either, I asked, forcing a small smile. She walked in and sat on the edge of the couch, her face soft with concern. You okay? You should be celebrating. You did it, you won. I nodded, but it felt like a lie. Yeah, but why do I feel like I lost something too? Lucy sighed, pulling the blanket tighter around me. Because it's your parents. You wanted them to be better to understand, but they didn't. A sharp pain settled in my chest. I thought, maybe if they saw how much I was hurting, they'd at least apologize or try to make things right, but they just didn't care. Lucy brushed a stray hair from my face. You did everything you could. It's not your fault they couldn't see it. You deserved better, and now you're finally getting it. I swallowed hard, feeling the guilt still gnawing at me. Why does doing the right thing feel so awful? She squeezed my hand. Because you're not like them. You have a heart, you actually care, and they took advantage of that for years. It's gonna hurt for a while, but you'll heal. I leaned into her, letting her words sink in. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight alone. The next morning, sunlight poured through the window, bright and unapologetic. Lucy had already left for work, leaving me a note by the coffee pot. Proud of you. Call if you need me. Also, don't eat all the cereal this time. Love, Lucy. I chuckled the simple note, bringing a warmth that melted some of the heaviness from my chest. I poured a bowl of cereal, ignoring the fact that it was mostly marshmallows at this point, and sat by the window phone in hand. A message popped up from Daniel. Hey, how about coffee tonight? You could use a distraction. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Before I could respond, another message came through, this one from Aunt Linda. Hey, sweetheart, just wanted you to know your parents are still telling people you're lying, but a few neighbors are starting to see the truth. Hang in there. I stared at the words, anger simmering just beneath the surface. They couldn't just keep lying, not after everything. Later that evening, I met Daniel at the little coffee shop on Elm Street, the one with the mismatched furniture and chipped mugs. He was already at a corner table, nursing a cup of something dark and bitter. He looked up, his smile easing some of the tension in my shoulders. Hey, you made it. I managed a smile sliding into the seat across from him. Barely. He pushed a cup toward me. Hot chocolate extra whipped cream. Thought you could use something sweet. A genuine laugh bubbled out before I could stop it. You know me too well. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, just the hum of the espresso machine and the soft chatter of other patrons filling the gaps. Daniel leaned forward, his fingers drumming on the tabletop. You know, I've been thinking, I raised an eyebrow, curious, about, he hesitated, his cheeks flushing slightly. You've been through a lot, and I know you're trying to figure things out. But if you need help finding a place I can ask around, I have a friend who manages that apartment complex on 5th. Might have something available. My heart did a little flip. You'd do that for me, he smiled softly. Of course. You deserve somewhere that feels like home. I looked down, fighting the heat creeping up my neck. Thank you. I didn't expect any of this. He tilted his head. Any of what? People actually believing me, supporting me. For so long it felt like no one saw what was really going on. Daniel's gaze softened. You never deserved to carry all that alone. Your parents, they used your kindness against you, but people are finally seeing the truth. His words hit something deep, a buried ache I didn't know I still had. I took a shaky breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I just want to be free of it, all of it. He reached across the table, his hand warm against mine. You will be, one step at a time. We spent the rest of the evening talking about everything but my parents' old stories from high school, his disastrous first job at the pizza place, the way his little sister was obsessed with frogs. For a few hours I felt normal, like I wasn't the girl who'd been thrown out on her birthday. As we left the coffee shop, Daniel walked me to Lucy's apartment, hands shoved into his pockets. When we reached the door, he hesitated, like he wanted to say something, but couldn't quite find the words. Finally, he looked up, eyes earnest and a little vulnerable. Emily, you deserve to be happy. I hope you know that. Something in his tone made my heart skip a beat. I opened my mouth to respond, but he just smiled soft and genuine before leaning in and kissing my cheek. Good night. I stood there frozen, feeling the lingering warmth where his lips had brushed my skin. When I finally went inside, I couldn't stop the smile that spread across my face. Maybe, just maybe. I was starting to see the light at the end of this long, dark tunnel. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, cutting across the small living room like streaks of hope. I was still wrapped in my blanket on Lucy's pull-out couch phone in hand, reading through a message from Aunt Linda. Your mom came by yesterday, asking why the neighbors aren't speaking to her. I didn't say much, just that people are tired of being lied to. I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of satisfaction and guilt. As much as I wanted them to face the truth, it still hurt to think of my mom confused and alone. Lucy shuffled into the room, her hair sticking up in every direction, holding a cup of coffee like it was her lifeline. You're up early. I nodded, biting my lip. Just thinking. She sank into the armchair opposite me, blowing on her coffee. About Daniel, because that little blush on your face says yes. I rolled my eyes, though I could feel the heat creeping up my cheeks. It's not just that. I keep thinking about what's next. Like, so what if I do move into that studio? What if I really start over? Lucy gave me a soft smile. You've been fighting to get your own life back. You deserve it. Don't let guilt hold you hostage. I hesitated. It's just, I always thought they'd be proud of me one day. You know that they'd see how hard I worked, how much I did to keep things together. Lucy set her coffee down, leaning forward. Sometimes, people don't change, even if they're supposed to love you. You can't keep waiting for them to be who you need them to be. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut because I knew they were true. I couldn't dwell on it for too long. Later that day, I got a text from Daniel. Good news, my friend confirmed the studio's available. You want to check it out this afternoon? My heart skipped a beat. It felt too real, too sudden. I texted back, yes, I think I'm ready. The building was older bricks, faded by time, but it had charm. A small bookstore occupied the ground floor, and a narrow staircase led to the apartments above. Daniel was waiting at the door, flashing me that lopsided grin that made my heart do weird things. "Hey, you made it," he said, holding the door open. I glanced around, taking in the cozy vibe. "It's cute, in a rustic kind of way?" He laughed. "Yeah, well, it's not the Ritz, but it's got character." The landlord, a petite woman named Marcy, led us upstairs. The studio was small but opened big windows overlooking the quiet street below, creaky wooden floors, and a tiny kitchenette. I walked around slowly, trying to imagine my life here. A place just for me, no walking on eggshells, no guilt. Marcy handed me the keys. "Take your time looking around. I'll be downstairs if you need me." When she left, I turned to Daniel, unsure. It feels weird to think about being on my own. He leaned against the windowsill, his eyes gentle. Weird or good? A hesitant smile crept onto my face. Maybe both. He took a step closer, his expression more serious. "You've spent so long taking care of everyone else. It's okay to take care of yourself now." His words wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. I took a deep breath, letting it fill me. "I think I want this place." His grin widened. "Good choice." That evening, after filling out paperwork, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. Lucy was over the moon when I told her, "You're gonna kill it. Emily, finally your own place." I nodded, but the thought of telling my parents loomed over me. Did I owe them that? Would they even care? As if on cue, my phone buzzed another message from my mom. "I heard you're moving. Why are you doing this to us? Don't you care anymore?" My stomach clenched. I couldn't keep doing this. Couldn't keep letting guilt twist my decisions. Lucy noticed my silence and took the phone from me. "Stop reading those messages. They're just trying to drag you back in." I knew she was right, but the words still stung. That night, I sat on the windowsill, looking out over the town. The faint hum of traffic and the soft glow of streetlights made the night feel peaceful. A soft knock on the door startled me. I opened it to find Daniel holding a small potted plant. "Housewarming gift," he said with a shy smile. I laughed, wiping my hands on my jeans. "You didn't have to," he shrugged. "You said you wanted something green to make the place feel alive." We sat on the floor talking about random things, the weird neighbors he used to have when he lived in a studio, how he once broke his ankle trying to impress a girl at a skate park. At some point, the conversation grew quieter, more personal. "You're really brave, you know," he said softly. I scoffed. "I don't feel brave. I feel terrified." He reached out, brushing his fingers over mine. "That's how you know it's real. You're not running away anymore. You're choosing yourself." His hand lingered, and I couldn't help but glance at his lips just for a second. Before I could overthink it, he leaned in, slow, cautious, and kissed me. It was soft, tentative, like he was afraid I'd pull away. But I didn't. When we broke apart, he smiled, resting his forehead against mine. "Sorry, I just couldn't help it." I laughed softly, heart pounding. "You really don't have to apologize." We stayed like that for a while, wrapped in something sweet and new, until eventually he had to go. As he left, I leaned against the door, a smile tugging at my lips. Maybe this was what freedom felt like, not just the physical space, but the chance to choose who I let into my life. As I curled up on the couch, the little plant sitting proudly on the windowsill, I whispered to myself, "I'm finally building something just for me." For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The first night in my new studio felt surreal. The space was sparse, just a mattress on the floor, a small lamp, and the little potted plant Daniel had given me. I sat cross-legged on the makeshift bed, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the soft creaking of the old building settling for the night. A text lit up my phone. "Did you get settled okay?" "Daniel?" I smiled, typing back. "Yeah, still feels strange, but a good kind of strange." A few seconds later, "You'll get used to it. Proud of you." I couldn't help but feel warmth spread through me. I still couldn't quite wrap my head around the fact that someone like him genuinely cared. The next morning, I woke up to the sun streaming through the large window, warming my face. I stretched, feeling lighter than I had in months, As I made my first cup of coffee on the tiny stovetop, I heard a soft knock at the door. I peeked through the peephole. Daniel. My heart did a little flip. I opened the door a bit embarrassed at my unbrushed hair and wrinkled pajamas. He held up a paper bag. "Breakfast delivery. Thought you might not have groceries yet." I laughed, stepping aside to let him in. "You're not wrong." He placed the bag on the counter and pulled out 2 bagels and a small container of cream cheese. I figured first morning in a new place deserved something special. We sat on the floorbacks against the wall eating bagels and sipping coffee. The conversation flowed easily like it always did with him. He told me about his new project at work, building custom bookshelves for the library, and I found myself genuinely interested. At one point he paused, his expression thoughtful. "You seem lighter, happier?" I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "I guess I am. For the first time in a long time, I'm not constantly worried." He nodded, his gaze softening. "You deserve that." A few hours later, I was unpacking the few boxes I had managed to bring from Lucy's when I heard a knock at the door again. This time it was Marcy, the landlord. "Hey, Emily? Just wanted to see how your first night went. Thought I'd drop off the spare keys." I smiled, grateful for her thoughtfulness. "Thanks. It went great. I really love the place." She glanced at the bare walls and nodded approvingly. "It's got good bones. Needs a bit of personality, though." I laughed. "Yeah, I'm working on that." She handed me the keys and gave me a quick once-over. "I don't mean to pry, but are you okay? You seemed a bit shaken when you first moved in." I hesitated, wondering how much to share. "It's been a rough few months, just trying to start fresh." She patted my shoulder gently. "Sometimes a new space does wonders. You need anything, you know where to find me." I watched her leave, grateful for her kindness. It felt good being somewhere that didn't feel like it was suffocating me. That evening, Lucy came over with pizza, a bottle of cheap champagne, and a loud proclamation of housewarming party for 2. We ate on the floor, since I still didn't have a table, laughing and reminiscing about our high school days. Lucy brought up the time I convinced her to audition for the school musical, despite her very obvious lack of rhythm. "Hey, I still think my off-key rendition of Defying Gravity was iconic," she said, grinning. I almost choked on my pizza. "Iconic or tragic. One of those." She threw a napkin at me. "You know I really am proud of you. This place suits you." I glanced around, taking in the way the warm light from the lamp played off the old wooden floors. "I think it might be the first place that actually feels like mine." Lucy raised her cup. "To new beginnings." We clinked our mismatched glasses, and for a moment it felt like everything was going to be okay. Later that night, after Lucy had gone home, I sat by the window scrolling through my phone. I noticed I had a missed call from Aunt Linda. Her voicemail was brief but heartfelt. "Emily, I just wanted to say that I'm proud of you. I know it's been hard, but I'm here if you need anything. Your parents are still, well, they're stuck in their ways. Don't let that drag you down. Call me when you're ready." I felt a lump in my throat, grateful for her support, but still aching from the realization that my parents weren't going to change. I knew I couldn't force them to see the truth. I had to accept that some people, no matter how much you love them, won't choose to grow. The next day, I decided to take a walk downtown, needing fresh air. As I passed the diner, I caught a glimpse of Jack, my dad, through the window. He was hunched over a cup of coffee, looking older, tired. I ducked my head, not wanting to be seen, but I couldn't help the pang of sadness. Part of me wanted to go in to see if he'd finally softened, if he'd acknowledged what he'd done. But fear of being rejected again kept my feet moving. As I turned the corner, I heard footsteps behind me. I glanced back and saw Daniel jogging to catch up. "Hey, thought that was you. You okay?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just trying to clear my head." He fell into step beside me. "Sometimes fresh air does the trick. You want company?" I didn't answer, just smiled and kept walking. After a few moments of silence, he nudged my shoulder lightly. "You know, I saw your dad at the diner too. Looked pretty miserable." I bit my lip. "He's probably telling everyone I'm heartless." Daniel hesitated. "Actually, I overheard him talking to Mr. Wallace. Sounded more confused than angry, like he couldn't understand why you left. That stopped me in my tracks. What after everything? Daniel nodded. It's like he can't wrap his head around the idea that you needed to break free. I don't think he's accepted it yet. I looked down at my feet, unsure whether that made me feel better or worse. You can't make him understand, Emily, Daniel said gently, but you can keep moving forward one step at a time. I glanced up at him, grateful for his steady presence. I guess that's all I can do. He smiled, and without thinking, I slipped my hand into his. He looked down at our intertwined fingers, surprised, but not pulling away. We walked like that, quiet, side by side, just being. For the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe I wasn't lost anymore. The sun was just starting to dip below the rooftops, casting long shadows across the street as I made my way home from the small grocery store down the block. My arms were full of essentials, bread milk, a few apples. I was finally starting to settle into a routine, one that didn't revolve around making sure someone else's life stayed on track. As I rounded the corner, my heart sank. There, sitting on the steps of my new building, was my mom, Carol. Her hair was wind-blown eyes, puffy like she'd been crying for hours. I froze, unsure whether to approach or turn around and walk in the opposite direction. She looked up and spotted me. Relief washed over her face. "Emily." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "What are you doing here?" She stood smoothing down her coat, her movements nervous. I needed to see you. Your father doesn't know I'm here." I didn't move closer. "Why now, after everything?" Her lip quivered, and for a moment I saw the softness I remembered from when I was little, when she'd brush my hair before school or make me cocoa after a bad day. But then reality snapped back, reminding me that the woman standing in front of me had let me be thrown out. Without a second thought. "I didn't know how bad things had gotten," she whispered, wringing her hands. "I didn't realize how much you were doing until you were gone." I bit back a bitter laugh. "You didn't know, Mom, I was working 2 jobs paying for everything. How could you not know?" Her shoulders slumped, and she wiped at her nose with a tissue. "Your dad, he kept telling me that it was just what families did, that you were supposed to help because we raised you." A hot wave of anger surged through me. "And you believed him? You thought it was okay to treat me like an ATM, like I owed you my entire life." She flinched, tears spilling over. "I didn't see it that way. I thought you'd always be there. I didn't think you'd leave." My chest ached deep and raw. "You didn't think I'd break. You didn't think I'd need to breathe just once without holding the whole world on my shoulders?" She shook her head, guilt carving lines into her face. "Your father's been different since you left. Angrier. He keeps saying you betrayed us, but I'm starting to think maybe we betrayed you." The truth of her words hung heavy between us, and I didn't know whether to scream or cry. Just then the door to the building creaked open, and Daniel appeared carrying a toolbox. His eyes widened when he saw Carol. "Hey, everything okay here?" I glanced at him, grateful for his presence. "Yeah, just talking." Carol gave him a wary look, then turned back to me. "Is this where you're living now? It's small?" I couldn't help the laugh that bubbled up hollow and tired. "It's mine. That's what matters." She seemed to struggle with that, like the idea of me having something separate from them didn't quite compute. Daniel cleared his throat. "Do you need a minute I can take the groceries in?" I handed him the bags with a grateful nod. "Thanks." When he disappeared inside, Carol took a shaky breath. "Your dad? He's been trying to find a way to get you to come back. I told him we couldn't force you, but he doesn't listen. I think he's more hurt than angry. He doesn't know how to show it." I clenched my jaw, trying to hold on to my anger, but it slipped just a little. I'm hurt too, Mom. You both made me feel like I was nothing, like I didn't matter, unless I was giving everything I had." She looked down at her hands, twisting the tissue between her fingers. "I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't see it. I just went along with what he said. I never thought about how it felt for you." For a moment, I let the silence stretch, unsure if I wanted to forgive her or just let her walk away. Finally, I spoke, voice low but steady. "I needed you to stand up for me, just once, to tell him that I wasn't a burden, that I was trying my best, but you never did." She let out a choked sob, shoulders shaking. "I was scared, Jack. He's always been so sure of himself. I thought, maybe I was wrong to question him. A pang of empathy slipped through my defenses, but I didn't let it take over. I can't keep sacrificing myself because you're scared. I can't keep being the one who holds everything together. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something change in her eyes. I never wanted to lose you. My throat tightened. Then why did you let him push me out? She didn't have an answer, just more tears and whispered apologies. I wanted to hug her to tell her it was okay, but it wasn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Finally, she straightened, wiping her eyes. If you ever want to come home, I'll make sure he doesn't stop you. I took a shaky breath, keeping my distance. This is home now. I'm not coming back. She nodded slowly, like she finally understood. Okay, I'll tell him. As she walked away, I felt both heavier and lighter, like shedding a skin that had grown too tight. I wasn't sure if I'd made the right choice, but it was my choice, and that had to be enough. When I went back inside, Daniel was waiting 2 mugs of tea on the counter. He didn't say anything, just pulled me into a hug, and I let myself break just for a moment. You okay? He whispered, his voice soft against my hair. I nodded, wiping my face on his shirt. I think I might be... We stood like that for a while, silent, steady, just breathing together. Finally, I pulled back, offering a weak smile. I needed that. He kissed my forehead. Anytime. I sank onto the couch, feeling like I'd just survived a battle I hadn't known I was fighting. The ache of my mom's words still lingered, but so did the knowledge that I had finally said what I needed to say. Maybe things wouldn't be perfect, but I was done letting them control my heart, and for once I felt free. A few weeks had passed since that unexpected encounter with my mom on the steps. I'd replayed that conversation 100 times in my head, wondering if I could have said more or less. But every time I thought about it, I knew I had done what I needed to. Life at the studio was slowly falling into a rhythm. Lucy helped me find a few more pieces of furniture, a thrifted armchair, a wobbly coffee table that we fixed with a bit of wood glue and too much laughter. Most nights I'd curl up by the window with a book or just watch the city lights flicker on one by one. Sometimes Daniel would drop by with takeout or some project he wanted my opinion on. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful, like the calm before a storm. One Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing relentlessly. Groggy and disoriented, I squinted at the screen. 25 missed calls. My heart pounded. I barely had time to process it before Lucy's name flashed across the screen. Lucy, what's going on? Her voice was frantic. Emily, your parents, there was a fire. The world seemed to tilt my mind blank. What are they? Are they okay? She hesitated. They're at the hospital. The house. It's gone. I couldn't breathe. A million thoughts collided, anger, guilt, worry. I barely registered grabbing my jacket keys or phone, just moving on autopilot. Daniel was at the bottom of the stairs when I rushed out. He must have heard me fumbling with the lock. Hey, what's wrong? I couldn't get the words out, just shook my head as he followed me to the car. I'll drive, he said firmly, guiding me into the passenger seat. The ride to the hospital felt like a blur, a mix of Daniel's steady voice trying to calm me and my own thoughts spinning out of control. What if they were hurt badly? Hurt? What if I never got a chance to make things right? When we finally arrived, I spotted Lucy in the waiting room. She rushed over, pulling me into a tight hug. I'm so sorry. I came as soon as I heard. What happened? I choked out, feeling my knees go weak. She bit her lip. The wiring. Something faulty. They were both home when it started. Your mom's okay, just smoke inhalation. Your dad, he got burned trying to put it out. I felt numb. I didn't know how to feel relieved they were alive, angry at the situation, guilty for not being there. Daniel kept a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. Do you want to see them? He asked gently. I nodded, but my feet wouldn't move. Lucy squeezed my hand. You don't have to do this alone. We'll go with you. We followed a nurse down a sterile hallway, the antiseptic smell making my stomach turn. When we reached the room, I could see my mom through the small glass window, lying on the bed, eyes open but unfocused. I pushed the door open slowly. Mom! She turned her head, eyes widening with surprise. Emily, you came. I swallowed hard, stepping closer. Of course I did. Her face crumpled and she reached out. I didn't know if you'd come, after everything. I took her hand, cold, trembling. I'm here. She squeezed my fingers, her voice breaking. Your dad. He's down the hall. They're treating his burns. They say he'll be okay, but the house, everything's gone. I took a shaky breath. I'm just glad you're both alive. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I don't know what we're going to do. We don't have insurance. Everything was tied up in that house. It hit me like a punch, realizing how precarious their situation really was. For all the control they'd tried to maintain, they'd never prepared for something like this. A nurse poked her head in, giving a soft smile. You can see your father now. He's awake. I glanced at my mom, unsure. She nodded, wiping her cheeks. Go. He needs to see you. When I stepped into his room, the sight of him made my stomach twist. His hands were wrapped in gauze, his face marred with angry red burns. He looked older, smaller. He blinked up at me, eyes glassy from medication. Emily. I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there trying to swallow the knot in my throat. He coughed weakly. I didn't think you'd come. I couldn't stop the words that tumbled out. You're still my dad. I couldn't just not come. He looked away, guilt flickering across his face. I always thought you'd be there to fix everything. Didn't think I'd end up like this. I took a step closer. Dad, I couldn't keep fixing everything. It was breaking me. His jaw clenched, but the fight seemed to have left him. I didn't know how else to keep it together after losing work. After everything, I didn't know what to do. For the first time I saw him differently, not as the strong, stubborn father who always had to be right, but as a man who didn't know how to cope. I reached out gently, touching his bandaged hand. You didn't have to do it alone. You just wouldn't let anyone help you the right way. A tear slipped down his cheek. I'm sorry, Emily. I never meant to push you away. My heart ached. I know. After leaving his room, I found Daniel waiting in the hall. I leaned into him and he wrapped his arms around me. I didn't cry, just let the exhaustion seep out of me. You did good, he whispered. You faced it. I nodded, my voice quiet. I don't know what happens now. He kissed the top of my head, one day at a time. You don't have to have all the answers right now. As we left the hospital, I glanced back, seeing my parents' brokenness, but knowing I couldn't be the one to fix them. Not anymore. Lucy joined us outside, looping her arm through mine. We'll figure it out, whatever happens. For the first time, I let myself believe it. I couldn't control everything. I couldn't change them, but I could choose how I reacted, how I moved forward. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that. It had been a few weeks since the fire, and life had slowly settled back into a routine. My parents were staying at a local shelter, while social services helped them figure out temporary housing. Aunt Linda called every few days to update me, saying Dad was quieter than usual, more withdrawn. I wasn't sure how to feel about it. Guilt still lingered, woven tightly into every memory I had of them, but I knew I couldn't go back, not to that life. One evening, as I sat by the window sketching out ideas for a small mural on one of the studio walls, my phone buzzed. Incoming call, Dad. My heart pounded. I stared at the screen, frozen. Finally, I took a deep breath and picked up. Hello? There was a pause on the other end, a shuffling sound. Emily? His voice was rough, like he'd been swallowing gravel. Can we talk? I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet, waiting. Your mom said you came to see me at the hospital. I don't remember much. Was pretty doped up. I cleared my throat. Yeah, I was there. He hesitated, like he wasn't sure how to continue. Listen, I don't know how to fix this. Your mom keeps telling me I messed up, but I don't know how to change what's already done. A lump formed in my throat. You can't change it, Dad. You can only try to do better. His breathing was shaky. I never thought I'd lose you. I always thought family just sticks together no matter how hard it gets. Anger prickled at my skin, but it was softer this time, mixed with sadness. Family does stick together, but not when it means losing yourself in the process. He went quiet, and I wondered if he was about to hang up. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, I don't know how to be without you taking care of things. My eyes burned with unshed tears. You're going to have to learn. I couldn't keep being the one to carry it all. He let out a breath, long and heavy. I know. I just didn't see it until it was too late. I couldn't stop the tears now, and I didn't try. I'm not saying I hate you, or that I'll never forgive you. I can't go back to that life, Dad. I can't lose myself like that again. There was a long silence before he finally whispered, I understand. After the call ended, I felt like I'd run a marathon, my body exhausted but my mind racing. I glanced at the mural sketch, a simple blooming vine wrapping around a window frame, and wondered if it was too optimistic for this little room. A knock on the door pulled me out of my thoughts. I wiped my face and opened it to find Daniel carrying a small, potted plant. He grinned sheepishly. I heard it's customary to bring a plant to every major life revelation. I couldn't help but laugh. You're really committing to this plant thing, huh? He shrugged, stepping inside. Well, the last one's doing pretty well. Thought it could use a friend. I placed the new plant next to the first one on the windowsill. Thanks. You always know how to make me smile. His expression softened. That's kind of the goal. We sat on the floor backs against the wall, just talking. I told him about the phone call, how I didn't know whether to feel relieved or angry. He listened, never interrupting, just nodding, and keeping his hand resting on mine. Finally, he spoke. You know, forgiving him doesn't mean you're excusing what he did. It just means you're choosing peace for yourself. I took a deep breath. I just don't know how to forgive him without losing myself again. Daniel brushed his thumb over my knuckles. It's not about going back. It's about moving forward. You don't have to let him control your heart anymore. Something about his words clicked like a key, finally turning in a stubborn lock. I didn't have to hate my dad. I didn't have to hold on to the anger just to prove I was strong. I could let go. The next morning, I woke up to find Lucy knocking on my door, barely containing her excitement. You're on Facebook. Someone shared your video again. I frowned, confused. What video? She thrust her phone at me. It was the video I'd made months ago, the one telling my side of the story. It was gaining traction again, but this time, the comments were different. People from town were chiming in, sharing their own stories of feeling used or manipulated by family. One comment caught my eye from Mrs. Hargrove. Emily, your courage gave me the strength to finally set boundaries with my son. I never realized how much I was enabling him. Thank you. I couldn't breathe, relief, validation, and pride swirling together. Lucy squeezed my shoulders. You've made more of an impact than you know. Later that evening, Daniel and I painted the mural together. It was messy and chaotic paint splattering on the floor and on us, but I didn't care. We laughed until our sides hurt, and when the mural finally took shape, I couldn't help but stare. The vines were vibrant, deep greens and wild blooms twisting around the window. It looked alive. Daniel wiped a smudge of paint from my cheek. It's beautiful, just like you. I turned to face him, heart pounding. I never thought I could feel this free. He leaned down his lips, brushing mine, soft, tentative. I kissed him back, pouring every bit of gratitude and hope into that moment. When we finally pulled apart, he smiled. You deserve happiness, Emily. Don't let anyone take that from you. As the night settled in, I sat by the window sipping tea and watching the mural catch the last light of the day. I knew I wasn't done healing, not by a long shot, but I also knew I wasn't alone. For the first time in my life, I was building something real, something that belonged to me. And as I traced the outline of the vines with my fingertips, I whispered to myself, I am enough. And for once, I believed it. After hearing Emily's story, I want you to think about your own relationships. Are there people in your life who take more than they give? Have you ever found yourself sacrificing too much just to avoid conflict? Sometimes standing up for yourself is the most difficult choice, but it's also the most powerful. It's not easy to break free from unhealthy patterns, but when you do, you give yourself the chance to grow, to heal, and to finally be at peace. Do you believe that family always deserves a second chance? Or are there times when it's healthier to walk away? I'd love to hear your thoughts, share your opinions in the comments below, and if this story made you think or if you connected with Emily's journey, please leave a comment and share your own experiences. Your story might just help someone else going through a similar struggle. If you enjoyed this story and want more heartfelt real-life tales, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything, and it helps us keep bringing you stories that inspire, move, and resonate. Remember, your voice matters, and your story deserves to be heard. See you in the next video.